But the truth is that somebody must recognize that Shaker and all of us were held without charge or trial, that we were beaten and tortured and abused in the name of security, in the name of protecting people, and in the end, none of that was proved to have been anything but a violation of human rights.
He was declared for release in 2007, but only today was it finally realised. The plane carrying Shaker Aamer to a new life touched down at Biggin Hill Airport at 1 o'clock today. There was no welcoming committee and no family members to greet him. On board were 2 counter-terrorism officers, an MI5 presence and a doctor on standby. An ambulance left at speed, but probably as part of a planned decoy operation. So finally home, Shaker Aamer is the last of 16 Britons or British residents to have been freed from Guantanamo. His return marks the end of a dark chapter, a chapter where alleged UK complicity in all of this has never been publicly held to account. The former Guantanamo prisoner number 239 will have to learn what it's like to be free again.
Please, we are tired.
In contrast to his own description of life behind bars, which was once recorded by a US documentary team.
You cannot walk not even half a meter without being chained. Is that a human being? That's a treatment of an animal.
He'll never readjust, ultimately. He's been through torture. He says to me, how can I talk about my torture? It's 5,000 days and 5,000 nights. So in ways it's going to scar him forever. But on the other hand, he's one of the world's great optimists. And the idea that he's going to get back and be able to hug his family is just a wonderful one.
There have been 15 other UK nationals or residents who've returned from Guantanamo in the past 11 years. One, known to be in Syria now, fighting for ISIS. Shaker Aamer is the last of this group to be freed. He was originally captured in Afghanistan in 2001, accused of belonging to Al-Qaeda.
13 years detention without charge or trial in the land of the free, one of the greatest democracies on earth. And how many young people around the world, including in Britain, were partly radicalised as a result of that legal black hole.
It's taken years of campaigning, Downing Street pressure on the US government and parliamentary delegations to Washington. Shaker Aamer's statement tonight was a personal thank you to his supporters.
Without knowing of their fight, I might have given up more than once. I am overwhelmed by what people have done by their actions, their thoughts and their prayers, and without their devotion to justice, I would not be here in Britain now.
His name was down for a share of the £50 million compensation to Guantanamo detainees, which was announced by the government in 2010. The Prime Minister's promise then of an inquiry was later abandoned. His return is likely to stoke those embers once more.
If there's one thing Shaker wants, it's a totally open inquiry. He doesn't want to send people to prison, he doesn't want to persecute people. But Shaker's mantra is that if we don't know what the history is, how can we possibly learn from history and avoid repeating these dreadful mistakes?
It's not just the orange boiler suit Shaker Aamer leaves behind. There remain 110 captives inside this compound. His detractors predict he will not stay silent.
Shaker Aamer is a larger-than-life person. He's somebody who's funny, makes people laugh. He's a vociferous advocate for people's rights. And I think that that's one of the reasons why he's remained in Guantanamo, in addition to all the other things that he's witnessed, which includes his own torture, the torture of other people.
So you think they held him to shut him up?
I believe that that's one of the key reasons, yes. And he's also witnessed deaths in Guantanamo. And in addition to his own torture, he maintains that his head was repeatedly smashed against the wall in Bagram in 2002 while British intelligence agents watched.
Is it true that during your interrogation they were trying to get you to incriminate him?
They tried to get lots of people to incriminate many others. Of course, they tried to get me to force me to sign a confession that I was a member of Al-Qaeda. They did so while I was drugged, and they bought a confession in which that I hadn't written, but they had written, that the American administration or the FBI had written, and they got me to sign it. And I signed it on the one basis that they told me that if you sign this, you get to go to court. And I thought, if I go to court, I can actually expose this rubbish. But of course, you know and I know that nobody gets to go to court when they're in Guantanamo.
You're one of the very few people, although your period of detention was much shorter than his, but you're one of the few people who knows what it's like to fly back to Britain after being held in these circumstances. What do you think will be going through his mind tonight?
I think he'll probably be in almost a state of disbelief that after 14 years of being held in an 8-foot by 6-foot cell where he's constantly shouted at by guards and interrogated and so forth, that he's now actually in a place where he's going to come home to see his wife, his children, who were last babes in arms when he saw them, and in one case of his youngest child that he's never seen at all. These are now, of course, grown men. So this is a completely new, I would say, set of tests and trials for Shaker to deal with, and that is being a free man. And so Shaker is going to try to somehow understand how was he held by the world's most vociferous proponents of human rights and democracy, and now is a free man, and he's going to somehow have to look at what that process means for him, and where it's going to take him.
He's got to come to terms with that, but we all have got to come to terms, haven't we, with what has happened in our names. And how do we get, do you think, as a nation, anywhere near the truth about Britain's involvement or not in what happened? He claims he was abused and tortured in the presence of British officers. How can Britain ever get towards the truth of that?
Well, I know that there are British police officers from the Metropolitan Police who've gone over to Guantanamo and met with Shaker in order to take testimony from him in what he claims about the abuses that he suffered with the complicity of the British. Our own government, of course, in 2010 had Cameron had ordered an inquiry into torture, which of course has now become defunct. He will also have a recourse to litigation, but the truth is that somebody must recognize that that Shaker and all of us were held without charge or trial, that we were beaten and tortured and abused in the name of security, in the name of protecting people, and in the end, none of that was proved to have been anything but a violation of human rights.
You said, I mean, there's a police inquiry that's a possibility, but I mean, do you need a judicial inquiry? You know,
well,
should MPs be looking at this?
Well, there was a judge-led inquiry that was ordered by Cameron, led by Sir Peter Gibson in 2010. That eventually became defunct, and that was handed over to the Intelligence Security Committee. Now, I don't know where that's going to happen. I don't know where that's going to go. But I think there still needs to be an inquiry. It's a very serious thing that happened in Shaker's case. It happened in our cases, but at least we were there for 3, 4, 5 years. For 14 years is unimaginable. It's outrageous that this could happen. He wasn't being held in a despotic regime's prison cells. He was being held in the cells of our closest ally across the water, and there needs to be people held accountable for this.
Now, as you know, a lot of people say, well, you know, you were there. He was there in 2001. He chose to take his family to the Taliban regime rather than to live under British democracy, as you did. So there must be something there, something fishy. What would you say to those people who hold these suspicions still?
These suspicions or allegations, whatever you want to call them, they're irrelevant. First of all, it's not a crime. Secondly, there were plenty of non-Muslim white Western Europeans living at the time working for NGOs in Afghanistan under the Taliban. That didn't have them necessarily, because of that, taken to Guantanamo. It's not a justification for torture. It's not a justification for cruelty and inhumanity and to detain a person for 14 years. It's simply a non-question. You don't abuse somebody and then try to hurl allegations against them after you've abused them. This is like what a rapist does. He tries to make his victim the criminal. The victims here are not the criminals. They're the survivors.